Deputies say she showed up at a Texas truck stop on Halloween in 1980. A day later, her body was found on the shoulder of an interstate, but it would be another 41 years before anyone knew who she was.
While the rest of the world kind of moves on, these families that are affected by tragedy, whether it's an unidentified person or a crime, they become fixed in time. They can't move forward.
I would like to thank the Sheriff's Office, the Criminal Investigative Division, as well as the lead detective, at this time being Tom Bean, for his drive and determination to not give up, as well as the partnerships that we have had assistance from.
A deputy read a statement from them at Tuesday's announcement.
Our parents passed away never knowing what happened to her or having any form of closure, but we are grateful that they never had to endure the pain of knowing her death was so brutal.
I want to tell you a story about Sherri Jarvis, who was known as Walker County's Jane Doe at the time. I will also be going to the locations of where she was last seen at in Huntsville, Texas. Sherri Jarvis was born on March 9th, 1966. In Forest Lake, Minnesota. Sherri was the daughter of Donald Eugene Sr., and the mother's name is Carolyn Jean Zinsky Zamburin. I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. By the age of 13, Sherri had been absent from school for a good length of time. She wasn't going to school, so the state of Minnesota removed her from her parents' home and placed her in a shelter. This is because Sherri was waiting to appear in front of the juvenile court for habitual truancy, meaning she wasn't attending school and wasn't excused. Why Sherri was missing so many days in school was unclear. Shortly after Sherri turned 14 on March of 1980, she had a detention hearing. I believe it was the day that she ran away with two other sisters or friends to Green Bay, Wisconsin, which was a 4-hour car ride from Stillwater, Minnesota. The two girls returned to Stillwater, Minnesota, but Sherri didn't. Why did Sherri and the two other girls drive to Green Bay, Wisconsin for? This is a really good question, and it's hard to answer because I couldn't find any information talking about it. Once Sherri was in Green Bay, Wisconsin, whatever she was doing and whatever she did and ever how long she stayed, she then made her way all the way down to Denver, Colorado. Most likely hitchhiking. Sherri mailed a postcard to her parents in August while living in Colorado for 5 months. Sherri was upset when she was taken away from her home and would return when she turned either 18 or 21 years old. Her parents were happy that they received a letter from her, but was still scared to death. They wanted to find her ASAP. Her parents even filed a missing persons report, hired a private investigator, and even kept the same phone number hoping she would call them. Now, I'm sure you want to know, What was she doing in Colorado for that length of time? I really don't know. Sherri then made her way all the way down to Huntsville, Texas. So I am on Old Phillips Road 100 out here in Huntsville, Texas. And right here is where the Gulf gas station used to stand. And of course, Sherri was dropped off somewhere at this location. This is where Sherri was first spotted at on October 31st, 1980 at around 6:30 p.m. She was dropped off by a man in a 1973 or 1974 blue Chevy Caprice with a light blue top. The driver drove off and Sherri went inside the Gulf gas station and asked a worker, "Where is Ellis prison unit at?" The only thing that really remains here is just the slab, concrete slab on the ground. The Ellis prison is about 15 miles behind me, going northwest, I think. It's just strange to think I'm standing somewhere where she used to stand at. Anyways, once she asked for directions from whoever, she started walking west on Sam Houston Avenue, which is pretty much this right here. Now, about 5 miles down the road, there's a truck stop that I'm gonna show you. So let's head over to that direction and we'll go from there. 350 feet.
Continue straight onto North Freeway Service Road, then you will arrive at your destination.
Arrive at your destination. I'm guessing it's where this truck is going as well. So
You have arrived.
This is the west side from what I remember. Okay, so there's the gas station. All right, I am at the Hitch and Post. And this is the second stop where Sherri was spotted at 8:30 on October 31st, 1980. Now, let me turn the camera back around. I don't know how much has changed since the 80s because that was about 44 years ago, but this is what it looks like today in 2024. It took her around 2 hours to walk there from the Gulf gas station. There's the restaurant right there in front of you on the left-hand side. It's been updated ever since the 80s, I know that. I believe these are the doors that Sherri went through in 1981. This place has been updated ever since. Sherri goes inside and talks to a waitress and asks directions to the Ellis prison once again. Well, the waitress wanted to know why and asked Sherri, "How old are you?" She replied with either 18 or 19 years old. Well, the waitress didn't believe her and asked her, "Where are you from?" Sherri said she's from the Rockport, Texas area. And the waitress asked her, "Does your parents know where you're at?" She responded with, "Who cares?" After the conversation with the waitress, she apparently exited the door. Like I said, this place has been updated since. But she walked out here, which is the truck side. And I guess she must have walked either that direction, she could have walked pretty much straight in front, and I guess maybe one of the truckers either saw her or she asked one of the truckers, "Hey, can I have a place to relax, spend the night, because I'm meeting somebody at Ellis prison." I believe this was the last spot that she was pretty much seen at, somewhere behind this restaurant or somewhere around here. you can see how easy it is to get on the interstate just from this gas station. That truck just got right on real easily. Even though he wasn't at the gas station, still, it's a very easy way to get on real quick. Like I said, her body is about 5 miles down that road. Now, I'm gonna turn the camera, or we're gonna turn this direction. And apparently, where's it at? Yeah, right here, like I showed you. You could just easily just zoom right on into the I-45, just like that. Just like that. So even if it was a trucker that did that, which I'm just guessing, I don't really know off the top of my head. Exit 123, 1696, and apparently getting very close, very, very close to what my phone is showing. Okay, I remember seeing that on the screen. Where's that? There should be a guardrail coming up here any second now. Oh, there it is, right there. Here we go. This is it right here. Woo! All right, well, this is it. Or somewhere around this area. Wow, it is busy today. And let's get out if I can. Jeez. It is busy. This is something you definitely don't want to be doing on the interstate. When all else fails, just go through the back way. Now, there's a guardrail a little ways down there, and apparently her body was found somewhere in this area. It's about 25 feet from the interstate. Now it's November 1st, 1980. And at around 9:30, a trucker was driving on I-45 and noticed what looked to be a body lying in the grass. So he backed up, and what he saw was a young woman laying naked, face down. The trucker ended up calling the police. They came out. They did a report on her, and then someone came and got her body, and I believe she was sent to the coroner's office or somewhere to figure out who she was. This has to be 25 feet because I am a little ways from my car on the side of the interstate. Obviously, it's been about 44 years since this happened, so a lot has changed, or it's changed, I should say. All right, so her body is about 25 feet out from the interstate. I think I might be about 30 feet outside the interstate. From what I could found online, the body was found somewhere between this tree, way in the distance, and this field that you're looking at. All the way between this tree or that tree over there, somewhere amongst this area that I'm standing in, was where her body was found by a trucker. Speaking of a trucker, I could see how a trucker could actually see this, because look how tall they are versus a car. So you can see the trucks easily, cars barely. And people who drive 18-wheelers can easily, they're higher up and they can see further out here in the overbrush on the side of the interstate. Crazy to think, just crazy to think. I hope I'm not standing where her body was at one point, but still, it's somewhere amongst this area that I'm in. It's very sad. Don't understand what would make somebody want to do such a thing. Let's head over to the cemetery where she is buried at. Made it to the final location. I am at a Dickey's addition to Oakwood Cemetery out here in Huntsville, Texas. And there is Sherri's gravesite. Now, let's get into the details. Sherri was wearing a necklace. The necklace was described as a rectangular brown pendant that contained a smoky blue or brown glass stone in it that was on a gold chain. There was no photo taken at the time, but it closely resembled this that you're looking at in this photo. The necklace is nowhere to be found in today's time and is believed to have been taken by someone working closely at the sheriff's department. Now, I'm not pointing any fingers saying this is true, but that's what I read online. Also, I heard that it was lost very soon after her discovery. So this makes me wonder if someone is trying to cover up something. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Her ears were pierced, but no earrings were found on or around her body. She had no identification on her, so no one knew who she was. So at this point, she was known as Walker County's Jane Doe for 41 years. An autopsy was done on her by the Harris County Medical Examiner. They believe she was between the ages of 14 and 18. She was 5 feet, 6 inches tall and weighed around 105 to 120 pounds. The victim had been deceased for approximately 6 hours, thus putting her time of death around 3:20 a.m. Another thing that was noticed on her was a scar near her right eyebrow. I'm not sure how that came to be. There are more facts going on talking about her health, looks, and teeth, which were really good. They believe she came from a middle-class family and was well taken care of. When it came to cause of death, it was ruled as being asphyxiation caused by ligature of strangulation, not by somebody's hands, but rather some form of ligature. Possibly had been strangled by her own pantyhose. Fragments of the pantyhose, along with the victim's underwear, had been shoved inside her vaginal cavity. It was guessed that whoever was responsible did this as a way to stop her from bleeding while transported her to the location where she was found that morning on November 1st, 1980. She was also abused in a way that a large blunt instrument was used in her several times. And this was all going on before she was murdered. There was no bodily fluid of any kind found by or in around her body. Her face, though, was badly beaten, and it was swollen big time. She had bruise marks all over her face. And one last thing, she also had a very deep bite mark on her right shoulder. When the investigation started, law officials went to the Gulf gas station and talked to the manager, who said she was looking for Ellis unit. So I drew up a map to get to Ellis unit. She was wearing blue denim jeans, a dirty yellow pullover with a white knit sweater, and was last seen carrying her red high-heeled leather sandals. Law enforcement then went to the hitching post and talked to 2 waitresses there. The deputy then asked some questions to the waitress who talked to that girl the day before she died, and this is what she told that girl to the deputy about getting directions to the Ellis prison unit. The waitress asked Sherri a few questions, like, where are you from? How old are you? Does your parents know where you're at? Well, Sherri responds with, I'm looking for the Ellis unit, and I'm planning on meeting a friend there. I'm from the Rockport and Aransas Pass, Texas. I am 19 years old, and says, who cares? After the waitress asks, does your parents know where you're at? Sherri leaves the restaurant, and that was the last time she was seen by them. Well, the law officials headed to Ellis prison unit, showed the staff and inmates the death photos of her, and no one knew her. They then headed to Rockport and Aransas Pass, Texas. They went to the schools and asked if anyone knew who this girl was. Still no answers. The officers went through missing files, you name it, and nothing. This was getting them nowhere. So this got them thinking, maybe she was homeschooled, or maybe she was not from that area that she said she was from, or even the state of Texas at this point. On January 16, 1981, the unidentified girl was buried at Oakwood Cemetery in Huntsville, Texas. She had an open casket at the funeral, and the reason they do this is in case if someone shows up to the funeral, still to be able to identify her, but sadly no one did. At one point in time, her grave read, unknown white female, died November 1st, 1980. By 1999, Walker County's Jane Doe was exhumed. The reason they did this was to collect DNA, as they didn't have the technology at the time in the 80s. The first facial reconstruction of the victim was released in 2012 by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Then a second one shortly after her 35th anniversary of her murder. In November of 2015, Walker County Sheriff's Jane Doe's case would officially be reopened. More DNA testing was done on her, and her sandals were also tested and never released to the public. I'm not sure how true that is or what, but that's what I read online. Again, another reconstruction photo of her face was released in 2018 by Carl Koppelman. Back in December of 2015, a photo of a girl started circulating online in these community groups. This girl was said to be named Kathleen or Kathy with either a C or a K. This all started when a brother and a sister were going through old photos, and that's when they stumbled across their photo with the girl in it. Apparently this girl was with the family at the time in a motel in Beeville, Texas. The girl said she's heading to a Texas prison in Sugar Land to meet a friend. The brother and sister who found this believes this might be Walker County's Jane Doe, as it had a similar story. Well, no one came forward, so no one really knows who this girl was in the photo. There were also two other Jane Does with somewhat similar to Walker County's Jane Doe, aka Sherri Jarvis's case. Both were found on the side of I-45, but these were in Houston, Texas. That's a whole nother video right there, if you want me to get into that. Anyways, Henry Lee Lucas claimed that he was responsible for Walker County's Jane Doe. Well, it came back negative. In July 2020, Detective Thomas Bean was the main detective on this case and reached out to a company named Othram. They wanted to take a shot at identifying this girl. Othram is an American Texas-based company that does incredible work. Specialized forensic genealogy to help solve unsolved cases, disappearance, and murders. There was also the FBI, Texas Rangers, and a few others that also reached out to help solve this case.
After more than 40 years, a teenage murder victim has finally been identified.
Yeah, she has been identified as Sherri Ann Jarvis of Stillwater, Minnesota. She had been known here as the Walker County Jane Doe. Her body was discovered on the side of the North Freeway back on November 1st of 1980.
How did authorities find her? In July of 2020, investigators contacted Ortham Labs and began forensic DNA testing from tissue samples from the original autopsy.
We can take evidence that is very old, DNA that's been previously unsuitable or unusable in other methods and traditional testing processes, and we can pull genetic information, markers and such from this evidence.
By March of 2021, Ortham was able to get a DNA profile and was able to connect the DNA with 6 people that were relatives to Jane Doe. Investigators were able to get in contact with 5 of the 6 relatives, and they confirmed to investigators that the Walker County Jane Doe was in fact Sherri Ann Jarvis. Sherri's case is far from over. Now that investigators know who Sherri is, they can now begin to fill in the blanks as why and who is responsible for her murder. Sherri's surviving family says at least one part of the case brings closure.
We love and miss you, Sherri, very much. You are with Mom and Dad now, Sherri. May you rest in peace.
If anyone has any further information on Sherri's murder case, please contact the Walker County Sheriff's Office at 936-435-2400. There are still so many unanswered questions about this case. Like, who was the person that she mentioned at the prison? How long has she been staying in Texas? Was the person responsible for her death a male or female? Was all of this planned out by someone who knew her while she was hitchhiking? Or maybe she was in the wrong place at the wrong time? How many friends did she make along the way? And how many people helped her out? There are still 100 or more questions that I could list. All we want to know is who murdered this 14-year-old girl from Minnesota. What I find shocking is that no one has came forward to talk to her besides the people who did see her hours before she was found murdered on the side of I-45 by a trucker. I can keep going on about this cold case. I just hope whoever did this to Sherri is found and brought to justice. I'm glad she has gotten her name back. May you rest in peace, Sherri Ann Jarvis. The Walker County Sheriff's Department is still looking for her killer to this day. They believe they have found some leads to who it might be, but it's still unclear to say publicly. The more you learn about this story, the realer it feels. It's scary. It's just hitchhiking back in the day was, I guess it was a common thing in the 80s. I don't know, I wasn't around during that time period. But I know today, not today. People still do it today, but it's very, very few. But it's best not to. Everybody has their own transportation for most parts. And the world is just messed up in general, so it's sad. It's just sad, sad, sad. I do know that her parents have passed on. I think all that'll remain are the siblings of Sherri. And they're still out there looking for their killer, and I hope they find him. I really do.